In today's video, we are going to look at the state of the economy and why do I think we still have massive upside, not only for Bitcoin, but for altcoins. Why do I think the Federal Reserve is about to start a really big bull market, I'd say end of this year or even beginning of 2026. And also why do I think in April, end of April, beginning of May, we might have a big move for Bitcoin. So stay tuned, will be a good one. Okay, first let's start with the current state of the economy. The most important thing in economy is liquidity. So if the Federal Reserve currently is in quantitative tightening but transitioning to quantitative easing, you always have to look at liquidity. At the moment, they are starting to inject liquidity into the system. They reduced from 35 billion in treasuries, selling treasuries, to 5 billion. So you're going to have more liquidity, more money in the system. And historically, you only had out season when the Federal Reserve was doing quantitative easing. So we are going to have quantitative easing, I think, end of this year or beginning of next one of 2026. We're going to have really positive bull market, even if I think this year we are going to have also very good bounces for altcoins, at least some of them. So current state, we are in quantitative tightening still, but the Federal Reserve is reducing the sell-off of treasuries. Treasuries are debt securities issued by the US Treasury to finance government spending. And then you also have mortgage rates, which basically they pool mortgage loans and selling shares that offer cash flows to investors. So these are the most important things when it comes to the Federal Reserve. The most important thing is they are reducing the selling pressure and they are transitioning to quantitative easing. So that's the current state. They are also is planned to have 2 cuts for this year and reducing the federal funds rate from 4.25, I think, to 3%. Inflation is close to target. They've been in restrictive environment for almost 2 years, so it's expected to have easier environment where I think altcoins are going to benefit immensely. So that's the current state. Now let's look into Bitcoin. So this is a very interesting chart. So over the last 5 months, the supply from major players, big whales, people with a lot of money, is being reduced, meaning the big players are selling less. We are almost at the lows, as you can see here. We are now starting, people with a lot of money are starting to buy Bitcoin again around these levels. And this is really important because the institutions, the big players, are the ones that push the price higher and then retail joins later. So the whales are accumulating still. So it doesn't make much sense to be a top for Bitcoin because the whales usually are not wrong. Another very important thing I've been looking at. So this chart shows basically the historic backtest of every kind of risk. So the price metric risk, on-chain risk, and social risk. And as you can see here, we only had tops for Bitcoin when the risk was around 1. If you look currently, the risk is around 0.27, which is actually the same risk when Bitcoin was at 27K. So buying Bitcoin now at 86K or buying 2 years ago at 26K is the same risk. So you don't have, at least for me, looking at many other metrics, this doesn't look like a top for the bull market. There is no euphoria. Usually when you have top for bull markets, everyone is rich. No one is rich at the moment. So I still think we are far from a top for Bitcoin. I still think we are going to 150 to 200K between this year and next year. Another very, very important thing is stablecoins reserve on Binance are at all-time high, meaning there is a lot of dry powder sitting on sidelines. People have a lot of money to spend. So this is also a good signal. You never have tops when you have so much money sidelined. When you have tops, usually people are all in. So another very, very important thing. Now let's look into Bitcoin, currently at 85K. If you look at the money supply, which is a measure of financial assets, more physical cash, something very, very interesting. This has a 90% correlation with Bitcoin. If it continues having this correlation over a year, it has 90% correlation, meaning Bitcoin follows what the money supply does. after 107 days. So there is a 107-day lag between what the money supply does and then Bitcoin follows after 107 days. And if it keeps following the price of money supply, as you can see, it's been really tight, we're going to have a really good move around May. April tends to be tough. It's taxation in the United States. So, of course, I still think April will not be the best month, but around May, I think, at least also according to money supply, we're going to have at least a really good bounce for Bitcoin. As long as we are above 70K, I'm really bullish for Bitcoin. Below that, things shift in my opinion, but as long as we are above this good demand zone around 75K, I still think we have a really good way to go. Also, if you look, let me actually show something cool too, right here. The top for Bitcoin, according to this indicator that has been really, really good, you only had tops for Bitcoin when we hit the top of this red zone. So as you can see, if you look on the monthly, shows better. Every single bull market we had, we only had tops around the top of the red zone, as you can see here. So if this cycle is even a worse, not so good cycle compared to last ones, we still reach, in my opinion, 150K. So we are not even in bull market territory. Every single time we had Bitcoin going to the red zone, which is bull market, even if we have diminished returns because Bitcoin is a higher asset, $2 trillion market cap, I still think we hit around 150K. And I think looking also at altcoins, I think at least we reach $1 trillion. Again, we only had bull markets for altcoins, or at least when the Federal Reserve started quantitative easing, or at least they started reducing the selling of treasuries, in this case, the transition from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. So, which is what's happening at the moment. So, really important, we're going to have quantitative easing, I think, either end of this year or next year. Could be quicker if we have a crisis, we hope not. But for altcoins, I still think we have a lot of potential, at least for really good ones like Tau, Solana, Sui, and all the top 20, 30, 50. Many of them I think will do well. If you look to the thousands of cryptos you have, I think majority of them are not going to have such a good bull market like in the last cycle. But the good ones, I think still we have a lot of upside potential. Another very important thing is the US dollar. You want a weak dollar in order to have really strong risk on assets. And the dollar is looking weak, to be honest. So I think the dollar goes to 100. This is the Dixie. Also, you can see when we started the quantitative easing in May, the dollar went from 102 to 90. So this was a correction of 13%, which is huge for the dollar. So if we have any similar, we could come to 99. This would be a massive move for risk on assets. Again, I still think we're going to have a strong year for Bitcoin. Of course, we're going to have corrections along the way. As long as we are above 70K, in my opinion, we still have a lot to go higher. So that's what I'm looking at in terms of altcoins. We are still in the same place. I think Tau will be one of the strongest altcoins. I think top 5, because just the amount of good subnets in Tau that if they were valued like normal cryptos, they would be valued billions. Something like Tau, decentralized infrastructure. If the future of AI is decentralized, Tau can actually become $1 trillion asset. So I think, in my opinion, it's one of the best risk to reward investments. A really good one too is Sui. I think Sui will compete with Solana. Sonic, another really interesting project. Also, I think will be one of the best layer ones. I think Solana and Sui, and then Sonic comes after. Hyperliquid, also interesting. It's still a really new project. Many people are taking advantage of that. Many problems, but still think it's a really good idea to try to compete with centralized exchanges. So these are the coins I'm currently looking at. I think they have a lot of potential. Of course, have Bitcoin on your portfolio. Then I'll have Tau, Solana, Sui, and Hyperliquid. Of course, my biggest position at the moment is Tau. If you want to be part of my Discord, have trades, daily live presentations, make sure you send me a message on Instagram. Tons of scammers on TikTok, so the best place is to message me on Instagram or even Telegram. So thank you very much, guys.